Welcome back to Real Food for Real Families in 22 Days. I'm Allison Bueller, and I've really enjoyed getting to interact with a lot of you in the Facebook group. So if you haven't checked in there, please do. I check it every day during the course, and even throughout the year, if I see that someone posts a question, I'll be glad to answer. So we started by adding in. We know from watching the video that we're not getting enough vitamins and nutrients in order for our bodies, our cells, to function correctly. And so the first remedy with real foods is to add in a bunch of things that we know are good for us. So number one, fruits and vegetables. According to the video that we watched, we need 9 cups of fruits and vegetables a day. That's a ton of fruits and vegetables. But could we at least increase our amount to 2 to 3 cups? How many of us go whole days without consuming any fruits and vegetables? We've all done that. And so that's what we want to start by doing, is adding in foods that we know feed our bodies. And the quality of food matters. We're going to talk more about that today. So today we're going to talk about replacing some of the foods that we do eat. Most of the grocery store we're going to talk about today it looks like this, right? It's processed foods. Most of the food we buy, they say, it's a great quote that says, the grocery store is not filled with food, it's filled with foodstuffs. And foodstuffs is exactly what you could call this. There's not one thing in this picture that is considered real food. Maybe the eggs in that jar. I'm not sure what they're sitting in. But we process food, and the reason we processed food isn't bad in and of itself. We process food to make it last longer. But our culture has taken this to a whole new level. And so if you think about what goes in your cart on a normal weekly basis, how much of that is real food and how much of it looks more like this? And so our goal of this program is to get you to shift away from this and to fill your cart, to fill your shopping bag at the farmer's market, to start to grow your own garden with more things that are real. So what are we talking about when we say real food? This is from a website that I will share with you later in the program, 100 Days of Real Food, and I love this woman. She made real food simple for busy moms, and she defines it like this: whole foods, food in its most natural state. So lots of fruits and vegetables, we've already talked about that, dairy products, milk, yogurt, eggs, cheese, but she qualifies that. She says they need to be organic, whole, unsweetened, and pasture raised. And so we'll get more into the details about that later. What we've done to our food system to make our foods last longer is to alter them in ways that makes them unrecognizable to our bodies. And so that's what we want to move away from. 100% whole wheat and whole grain products. So switching your grains, or it's really important to switch your grains to something that is less processed, that your body can use for something other than sugar, and to feed your body what it needs. Seafood, she prefers wild caught over farm raised. Local meats, pork, beef, and chicken. And then she says to eat those in moderation. We really want to focus on increasing our plant intake and increasing our fruit and vegetable intake, seeds and nuts. This is where paleo goes a little crazy. They'll just, they really emphasize the meat part of it, which is what we want to do because that tastes good. It also tastes good a lot of times because we've added a whole bunch of salt. And so we really need to watch that we're eating meat in moderation. There's nothing wrong with meat, but the amount of meat that we eat is pretty off. So we're trying to balance it more towards plants at the bottom of the food pyramid, and then meats higher up rather than at the bottom. And we definitely don't want carbs at the bottom of the food pyramid either. So we're switching that, and it's a change, it's a shift that takes a little while. Natural sweeteners, she likes honey and maple syrup. Snacks like dried fruits, seeds, nuts, and popcorn. And then your beverages, water, milk, all natural juices, coffee, tea, wine, and beer, as she says, in moderation, naturally sweetened and in moderation. So the one drink that you can have, unlimited, of course, is water, and we're going to talk about replacing our drink in this program. So let's talk about replacing our purchases. When we go to the store, what are we looking for? Well, the easiest thing to replace is your breakfast. Most of us eat, this is what we ate for years, were processed bagels. They were just white with some kind of processed cream cheese on them. Sometimes we would have organic Pop-Tarts, basically is what they were, Pop-Tarts. So you've got your carbs, you've got your sugars, they're all processed. And they were organic, and that's the other thing. You can find a lot of processed food in the healthy food section these days, so you have to really start to look at what's in your food. And so replacing your breakfast with something real. I like this formula: vegetables, a protein, a healthy fat, and a carb. And really in that order. So every breakfast that we eat at home includes a smoothie, because that's where we get our vegetable. Protein, you can get that in the form of meat or some kind of nut butter. You can get that in the form of a protein powder if you want to add it to your to your smoothie, sorry. And then a healthy fat. So what are you cooking your meat in? What are you cooking your veggies in? And carbs, we're talking less about refined carbs and more about fruit. Fruit would be in the carb department, or a whole grain kind of carb, like whole oatmeal that you cook in maybe the slow cooker overnight. So if you kind of keep vegetables at the bottom, then protein, healthy fats, and carbs in your breakfast recipe, you'll do okay. If we combine our high glycemic foods that shoot our sugars up, like fruits and carbs, with a protein or a vegetable, it's going to lower the glycemic index of our bodies. Our blood sugar won't shoot. Caffeine is another one that shoots your blood sugar up. So if you're a coffee drinker first thing in the morning before you eat anything, your blood sugar is going to have a spike that would be ameliorated if you drank that coffee with a protein. So just start thinking about how those things impact your body. And I want to ask yourself right now, what do you normally eat for breakfast? What do you feed your kids for breakfast? What's a typical run to work, run to school, grab fast because everybody's in a hurry breakfast? And just start thinking about it. I'm going to give you some resources in this lesson about what you could change that to. Replace the dirty dozen vegetables for organic. There's the EWG group, which I'll talk about on the next slide. It's one of my favorite nonprofits, and they tell you don't have to buy every vegetable organic. It gets expensive, but there are certain ones that you really do need to look at, and we'll talk about those next. Replace your meats and dairy for grass-fed, and I'll show you a slide later on that shows why that's important. Replace your drink and your condiments. You need to start to read labels. On the back of almost every condiment that you buy, ketchup, soy sauce, all of them, high fructose corn syrup is one of the lead ingredients. And I had to go through the entire aisle of barbecue sauces at Kroger to find one. They have only one that doesn't have high fructose corn syrup on it. So you have to start to read labels and know what's in your food. You can start to make your own condiments, but I know most of us are parents, are busy, or you just don't want to do that. You can find things that are healthy, but you have to do a little bit of research. And again, replace your grains. So we're talking about brown rice for white rice. We're talking about ancient grains for processed white flour. We're talking about maybe switching out your baking ingredients, switching out your breads, switching out your pastas for something that is more whole grain, switching out your instant oatmeal for something that might cook overnight, but it's not too hard. So let's not make this so hard. People get really obsessed with this about what they're supposed to be eating. We know when we look at this picture which one's the better choice. And so just start when you go through the aisle at the grocery store. When you pick up something that you normally buy, say you buy bread, look down the aisle, look at the ingredients, go into another aisle, maybe the frozen food section, maybe the healthy food section, and see if you can't find a bread that you like that is less processed, has less ingredients. The number of ingredients is important and would be a better alternative for you. If you buy ketchup that week, look at the back of all the ketchups. Pick the one without high fructose corn syrup. So here are some easy swaps you can make. Coke sweet tea for water, or kombucha or herbal tea. Bread, your normal bread. If you want to lower your processed carb intake, switch them for tortillas or gluten-free or sprouted grain options or flatbread. Or just switch them for an ancient grain bread or a whole wheat bread. Look at the number of ingredients. There are a lot of breads that masquerade as healthy that really are not. The number of ingredients matters. If you can't pronounce something that's in the back of it, be wary of it. Find something that you can. There are alternatives out there. It's a really good time to do this. When we started this process, there really weren't alternatives at the grocery store. You had to make your own bread if you wanted something decent. But there are alternatives out there now. Switch out white pasta for the spiralized veggies or a veggie base. I have this little machine that I just throw zucchinis through and it makes zucchini noodles. And my kids will eat spaghetti on top of that instead of regular white noodles now. Even if you don't, if you don't want to do that, then just switch your grain to something healthier. There are all kind of noodles out there. There are lentil noodles. There are black bean noodles. There are whole wheat noodles. So just try switching out and experiment. There are some noodles out there that taste terrible and that my family will not eat, and you have to do a little experimentation to find what's good for you. White rice for brown rice is an easy switch. Try using cauliflower or squash or ancient grains as a base. Sugar for honey is an easy switch. Cooking oils are important. If you just do one thing this week, or the first thing that you do is pick a healthy cooking oil. Olive oil is really probably the healthiest option, but you can't heat it up. If you heat it up, it changes the oil into something that your body doesn't recognize. So it's good for things that you put on after things have been cooked, like salads, or to put on something you cook after it's been heated. But in order to heat something up, you have to be careful. And so some of the healthy alternatives out there are avocado oil, coconut oil can be heated, lard, straight lard from, if you render your own lard or if you can find someone who does that for you. Palm oil, if you pick one that isn't completely environmentally terrible, there are some out there, they're okay to be heated. Do some research on your cooking oils though, because the basic Crisco that we've used forever, or the vegetable oil, the canola oil, those are all really, really hard on your body. And you'll see a big difference if you clean up just the things that we cook our food in. And again, condiments are an easy switch. So here's some easy swaps. I just want to give you, again, easy. It doesn't have to be so complicated, and you don't have to switch everything at once. But just look at some of these swaps on this page and think about if that's something that you could conceive of doing in the grocery store. Why grass-fed? Why is that so important? Grass-fed is what animals are supposed to be. So cows are supposed to be raised on pasture. Pigs are supposed to forage in the woods for acorns. Chickens are supposed to eat bugs and be on grass. And what do we feed all of our animals in our modern food system? We feed them grain, which is pretty unnatural for them. And when we do that, the percentages of healthy parts in these foods, so omega-3s, vitamin D, vitamin A, even vitamin C, all the vitamins and nutrients that we need, and the reasons that we're eating these meat, they go down. They go down. So you can look at this little chart. It shows you just on, I think this is in cattle, this chart. And so weeks in the feedlot and how much omega-3 is left in that meat. And so most of our meat that we buy commercially has virtually no omega-3s in it. If you really want to feed yourself something that is good, if you want to feed your family something that's good, you need to look at an affordable option for grass-fed meat. And maybe the affordable option is that you don't eat so much meat. Maybe you eat this twice a week. EWG is one of my favorite nonprofits. Again, they do independent research on the impact of environmental factors on our food, our cleaning products, and our personal care products. And now they have even a water database. You can check your water. They always pick every year. This is a year old. This is the 2016, but they update it every year. You can check this year's. They do a dirty dozen foods. And so these are the foods that you really do need to consider buying organic. You don't have to buy every food organic. They're on the other side of that chart is the Clean 15. And those foods are pretty safe. There are very low levels of pesticide residue in them. But the dirty dozen, those are foods that you need to replace with organic options. And again, start reading labels. And what are you looking for in labels? You're looking for these are the top 7 right here. High fructose corn syrup. It has a lot of other names. Trans fats, that's one that you're hydrogenated. Everybody has heard that term by now and what that's doing to our bodies, our cholesterol, our blood pressure. And the thing about trans fats is we also turn those into sugars. And so the reason that we're seeing so much hypertension and diabetes is because of the number 1 and number 2. Artificial flavors, that's a huge one for kids and behavior and learning, most kids react to some artificial flavors. I mean, you see this at birthday parties all the time. If you have any doubt, just go to a kid's birthday party and watch them before they eat the cake and after they eat the cake. The sugar is in there too, but the artificial flavors are pretty strikingly not healthy for our kids. The MSG, we've all heard about that one. Artificial colors again, same as the artificial flavors, artificial sweeteners, and preservatives. So these are the ones you're looking for. But if you do nothing else, check out number 1, number 2, and then 3 and 4, 3 and 5 are pretty close for if you have kids. And so I want you to try to start thinking about making your meals simple. There are dozens and dozens of websites out there, and it's one of the reasons I started this class, that make these crazy, complicated paleo or Whole30 or healthy breakfast meals that I am never going to do in real life. We are busy. We've got a limited amount of time. I don't want to spend a ton of money on food. I want it to be affordable. I want it to be economical, quick, and doable. And so making these things easy, look on the lesson this week, and I've got two links down low. If it's more than 5 ingredients, I'm not going to do it. And I think you just really need to take a step back from making things complicated to making things simple. What's wrong with eating a banana with almond butter on it for breakfast? That's a very decent breakfast. What's wrong with sticking whole oatmeal into a crock pot with blueberries? And that's breakfast the next day. If nothing else, just grind up veggies and some kind of protein and fruit and some kind of, you can do kefir or water or whatever, almond milk, whatever you want to do in your smoothie. And that's breakfast. A sausage patty with sweet potatoes, pan fried is an easy breakfast. So make things easy. Lunch to me is super salad with healthy oil and a little bit of protein. And then dinner, a veggie base. Start looking at the vegetable base with a healthy protein and minimal carbs. So you're flipping your food pyramid again. But snacks, that little packet right there, our kids won't eat that anymore. But that's a perfectly normal snack that children used to eat. I asked my daughter what kids were bringing for lunches right now because she just started back to school. And I said, do they bring fruit and carrots and little celery? She said, I don't see any fruit. I don't see any vegetables, Mom. And so what they've been trained and conditioned by their friends and by our culture to do is to look for food that's been processed. So we don't eat fruit, we eat fruit snacks, or we eat fruit roll-ups. We don't eat vegetables, but we might eat vegetables in something. So we've been processed and our taste has really been changed. But moving back to just real food, simple ingredients is important. And so real food is just food the way that nature intended it, really, without much change. And so really checking the way that we purchase and checking the way that we plan our meals. We're going to talk about meal planning in the next lesson. But right now, just start thinking about your shopping. Read ingredients, check in with the Facebook group, and also look at your barriers this week. Why do we think we can't do this? Why do we think our children can't eat fruit? Why do we think that we don't have time to make real food? Is it because we make it too complicated? Is it because we don't really know how to deal with a whole chicken? Is it a need for more education, or is it a need for maybe a change in attitude or expectation? And so check in with the Facebook group on those things, and I will see you there. Thanks.